It was 8:42 p.m. on a humid Thursday in late November 2014. Oak Ridge High was an aging structure built originally in 1972, positioned on an isolated 40-acre plot surrounded by dense pine forestry in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Because it was a late weekday evening, only 4 people remained inside the 120,000-square-foot facility. Arthur, a 58-year-old lead night janitor with 22 years of service at the district. 2 high school seniors, Marcus and Elena, who had received special permission to stay late in the second-floor computer lab to finalize the layout for the fall yearbook, and Mr. Vance, the assistant principal, working quietly behind closed doors in the main administrative wing. At precisely 8:45 p.m., the school's computerized security management console suffered an unmapped system fault. Without human intervention, the building's automated lockdown sequence engaged across all 3 wings simultaneously. Heavy, magnetic fire doors dropped into place with a deafening metallic thud, sealing off every main hallway intersection. In the second-floor computer lab, the fluorescent light tubes buzzed twice and died. The amber emergency beacons illuminated, throwing long, exaggerated shadows across the rows of black monitor screens. Marcus immediately pulled out his cell phone. "No signal," he said, turning the screen toward Elena. "The booster in the office must have cut out." Down on the first floor, Arthur unclipped his handheld 2-way radio from his belt loop. He clicked the side transmit switch. "Mr. Vance, did a pressure sensor trip down in the lower boiler room again?" Static hissed through the small plastic speaker. Then, slowly, another sound mixed into the frequency. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It wasn't electronic feedback. It sounded like thin metal wire being scraped across bare concrete. Arthur stepped out of the janitorial supply closet into the main hallway of Wing B. The hallway was empty. He looked down toward the floor, then up toward the ceiling. The drop ceiling in Oak Ridge High was made of standard 2x4-foot acoustic foam tiles, resting on a suspended aluminum T-bar grid. 50 feet down the corridor, right above the entrance to the varsity gymnasium, one of the ceiling tiles was slowly rising upward into the dark plenums above. Something was moving inside the crawl space, between the dropped ceiling and the concrete roof deck above it. Arthur held his breath, raising his industrial flashlight. The beam illuminated the ceiling grid. The aluminum crossbars were bending downward under localized weight. Whatever was moving inside the ceiling weighed far more than a rodent or a stray animal. The metal framing groaned under a concentrated mass, moving smoothly along the support channels. Upstairs in the computer lab, Marcus stepped silently toward the thick wooden door. He leaned his forehead against the reinforced wireglass window to look out into the second-floor hallway. "Do you see anything?" Elena whispered, staying near the back wall as protocol dictated. "No," Marcus murmured. "The fire doors dropped at both ends of the hall. We're sealed in." Then he heard it, directly above his head. Thump, slide, thump, slide. The noise wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the room's upper ceiling frame. In modern commercial construction, standard interior walls often only extend up to the height of the dropped tile frame, not all the way to the concrete ceiling slab above. The ceiling plenum is one continuous, uninterrupted open space across an entire floor. The lock on the classroom door meant nothing. The thick wood meant nothing. The reinforced wire glass was useless. Marcus watched in horror as the acoustic tile directly above the teacher's primary desk was pulled upward into the dark void above. 2 thin, pale, multi-jointed appendages reached down through the open square, gripping the aluminum frame. They were not human hands. They were unnaturally long, completely hairless, and ended in thick, keratinized tips that bit deep into the light metal framing. Marcus grabbed Elena by the arm, dragging her quietly toward the far wall under the low bulletin boards. They crouched together, following safety protocol by staying silent, but their eyes never left the ceiling square. A face pushed slowly down through the opening. It lacked distinct facial features, no pronounced nose, no visible lips, just smooth, stretched, ash-gray skin taut over exaggerated jaw architecture. Two wide, milky white eyes reflected the dim amber light of the emergency beacon. It didn't drop down to the floor. It remained suspended upside down from the structural deck above, its head turning with slow, mechanical jerks, sweeping the dark computer lab. Downstairs, Arthur had backed himself into the main administrative office. He picked up the hardwired copper landline phone, the only communication system unaffected by power cuts or signal dampeners. He dialed the local sheriff's department dispatch. The call log was archived at 8:51 p.m. "Sheriff Dispatch, what is your emergency?" Arthur's voice was recorded as a raspy, trembling whisper. "I'm at Oak Ridge High. The automated lockdown triggered. Send someone right now. And tell them not to look at the floors." "Sir, do you have an active intruder?" "It isn't on the floor," Arthur whispered, his breath catching as the ceiling panel directly above the receptionist desk began to bow downward. "It knows the lockdown locks the doors from the inside. It's using the ceiling space to clear room by room." Arthur dropped the receiver and bolted toward the secondary exit through the principal's private office. Behind him, the sound of falling foam tiles, shattered aluminum grids, and heavy drywall filled the room. Upstairs, Marcus and Elena didn't move a muscle. They remained pressed against the concrete wall, completely motionless, as the entity suspended from the ceiling lowered its upper torso fully into the room. Its skin made a dry, rustling sound as it dragged itself along the aluminum T-bars, moving away from the teacher's desk and toward the center row of computers. It was searching by sound. Every time the building shifted, every time the wind battered the window frames outside, the entity's head would snap toward the noise with terrifying speed. Elena pulled her breath in, pressing her hand over her mouth. She felt a tear roll down her cheek, hitting the linoleum floor with an imperceptible tap. The entity froze. Its milky eyes locked onto the dark corner beneath the bulletin boards. It began to crawl along the ceiling frame directly toward them, its long joints popping like breaking pine branches with every step it took across the metal grid. Just as it reached the ceiling panel directly above Marcus and Elena, the school's main emergency generator in the basement cycled its automatic testing routine. A massive, loud diesel engine roared to life below, shaking the entire second floor and echoing through the HVAC ducts. The sudden vibration and noise overwhelmed the entity. It hissed, a high-pitched, steam-like sound, and retreated upward, pulling itself back into the ceiling plenum and vanishing into the darkness above. When county deputies finally breached the building's exterior doors 20 minutes later, they found Arthur locked in an exterior utility shed outside the main wing. Marcus and Elena were recovered from the computer lab, physically unharmed but severely traumatized. The maintenance report filed 3 weeks later noted that over 40 contiguous ceiling tiles across the second floor had been shattered from above, and the structural aluminum grid had suffered catastrophic tensile damage from an unmapped concentrated overhead load. In any modern commercial or educational facility, standard architectural ceiling tiles provide zero structural isolation. A locked door only secures a perimeter up to 8 feet. If trapped during a lockout, always audit the plenum space above your head immediately. Spring of 2019. An older suburban preparatory school in central Ohio. It was 3:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. Regular classes had dismissed 45 minutes prior, but 8 people remained in room 204 for an extended study hall, 7 high school sophomores, and a faculty supervisor, Mrs. Gable. Without warning, the external facility siren sounded a single long blast. The internal door locks auto-engaged across the wing. Mrs. Gable immediately executed standard district protocol. She locked the heavy classroom door from the inside, taped black construction paper over the viewing window, turned off the overhead lights, and instructed the 7 students to sit against the interior cinder block wall away from all exterior glass. For 40 minutes, the room was completely silent. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the battery-operated wall clock and the low hum of the building's central HVAC unit pumping cool air through the floor vents. Then, a sound broke the quiet, not from the hallway and not from the window side of the room. It came from the back corner of room 204, inside a built-in metal supply locker. This specific locker was different from the student lockers in the main hallway. It was an old, 6-foot-tall double-door steel cabinet bolted directly into the foundation wall. It had been secured with a heavy, rusted brass padlock since at least 2003. District maintenance records had designated the cabinet as structural storage, unused, due to internal boiler pipe exposures. Knock, knock, knock. 3 distinct, deliberate knuckles tapping against the inside of the locked steel cabinet door. The 7 students instantly froze. Mrs. Gable stood up slowly from her desk, whispering for the students to remain absolutely quiet. She assumed it was a prank. It was common for students to attempt jokes during unexpected lockdown drills. She believed someone had climbed into the cabinet prior to the period starting. Mrs. Gable stepped across the linoleum tile, stopped 2 feet from the brass padlock, and knocked twice on the steel frame. "Whoever is in there," she said firmly. "This drill is active. Settle down immediately." The answer came instantly. A massive, flat palm slammed against the inside of the steel door with such violent force that the center metal panel bowed outward toward Mrs. Gable by 2 inches. The heavy brass padlock didn't break, but the paint around the door seams flaked off, dusting the floor in gray powder. Then came the voice. It did not travel through the air. All 7 students and Mrs. Gable reported during subsequent separate interviews that the sound seemed to generate inside their own inner ears simultaneously. The voice spoke with absolute clarity, using the distinct accent and native vocabulary of whoever was listening to it. "Thank you for confirming someone is inside." The steel storage cabinet began to deform, not outward as if something was trying to push its way into the classroom, but inward. The doors, the steel side panels, and the reinforced metal frame began bending backward into the cabinet interior, dragged by a massive negative atmospheric vacuum inside a locker that was physically only 18 inches deep. The metal groaned and twisted like paper. The space behind the bending metal didn't show boiler pipes or concrete walls. It showed a pitch-black, lightless void that smelled of ozone and stagnant water. One of the students, a 15-year-old named David, squeezed his eyes shut and pressed his hands over his ears. But the voice inside his head only grew louder, humming a slow, rhythmic pattern that made his nose bleed. "Mrs. Gable, please." David choked out, struggling to stand as the air pressure in room 204 dropped rapidly, pulling loose paper and light items across the floor toward the warping locker frame. Mrs. Gable did not wait for the frame to buckle entirely. She broke safety protocol. She reached for the primary classroom door, unlocked it, and pushed all 7 students out into the main corridor, evacuating the wing entirely. They ran down the pitch-black hallway, guided only by the green glow of the emergency exit signs, as behind them, the heavy timber door of room 204 was pulled backward into its own frame by the suction coming from the cabinet. When emergency personnel finally swept room 204, 3 hours later, the room was empty. The steel cabinet was found completely collapsed inward on itself, crushed into a solid metal cube no larger than a basketball, resting in the center of a crater formed in the concrete floor tile. The brass padlock was still locked around the melted metal loops. Physical barriers work in both directions. When executed during an emergency, never attempt to establish audio contact or verify unknown sounds originating from within your secured zone. Silence is not merely compliance, it is your only concealment. The 31st of October, 2021. An isolated consolidated school district in rural Western Oregon. The school day had officially ended at 3 p.m. The student body had departed on district buses, leaving 12 faculty members in the main building for a mandatory district-wide staff planning meeting inside the central library space. At 3:15 p.m., the automated public address system chimed over the wall-mounted speakers. A voice broadcast through the room. It was crisp, recognizable, and entirely calm. It was the distinct voice of Dr. Eris, the school principal. "Attention staff members, we are initiating a code black lockdown. Please step out into the primary hallway immediately to receive direct instructions from administration. 3 junior teachers immediately stood up from their chairs, pushing back their papers to walk toward the double glass doors of the library. "Wait," said Sarah, a veteran science instructor with 19 years at the campus. She held up her hand, pointing to the far side of the conference table. Dr. Aris was sitting right there. He was holding his pen. His hands were nowhere near his desk radio or the wall-mounted administrative intercom console. "Doctor," Sarah whispered, her voice dropping instantly. "Did you pre-record an announcement for today?" Dr. Aris turned pale. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his master keyring, and laid it flat on the wooden table. "Code Black was retired from our district safety manual in 2016, he said quietly. "We don't have a Code Black broadcast setting on this system." The speakers throughout the library chimed a second time. The principal's voice played again over the system. But this time, the pitch was noticeably altered, dropped by 3 full octaves, vibrating the ceiling light fixtures with a metallic, mechanical resonance. "Attention staff, you have declined to step into the hallway. The perimeter doors are now being unlocked for your convenience." Down the main corridor outside the library, a series of heavy mechanical clicks echoed as every single classroom door along the 300-foot hallway unlocked simultaneously. Then came the sound of movement. Not one set of footsteps, dozens of them. Heavy, unhurried, perfectly synchronized, hard-soled shoes striking the polished linoleum floor in absolute unison, advancing down the dark hallway straight toward the library's double-glass entry doors. Sarah didn't hesitate. "Move the oak tables!" she yelled, breaking the frozen silence in the room. The faculty slammed 3 400-pound solid oak reading tables against the glass doors, just as the exterior metal door handles began to slowly turn downward from the outside. Through the frosted glass panels, the teachers could see no silhouettes standing under the hallway lights. The door handles were moving entirely on their own, pulled down by an invisible, deliberate mechanical force that rattled the latch assemblies. "Hold the line!" Dr. Aris shouted, pressing his back against the barricaded table as the double doors bulged inward under heavy, rhythmic impacts from the empty hallway outside. Thud, thud, thud. It didn't sound like hands hitting the glass. It sounded like dozens of heavy wooden mallets striking the frame at the exact same millisecond. Sarah grabbed an emergency radio from the circulation desk and flipped it to the emergency dispatch channel, bypassing the school's local intercom network. "Dispatch, this is Sarah Miller at Oak Creek Consolidated. We have an automated system breach and physical impacts on the library barrier. Send tactical units immediately." "Copy, Oak Creek," the radio crackled. "Units are 5 minutes out. Maintain your position." For 5 agonizing minutes, the 12 faculty members held the barricade as the glass in the library doors fractured into spiderweb patterns. The synchronized footsteps outside never stopped marching in place, right on the other side of the thin frosted glass. Then, at 3:28 p.m., the distant sound of police sirens echoed down the road outside the building. The moment the sirens crossed into the school parking lot, the footsteps stopped. The door handles snapped back into their horizontal positions with a loud metallic click. The PA system chimed one final time, emitting a brief, distorted burst of laughter before cutting to total silence. When local deputies breached the building, they swept every corridor, office, and maintenance shaft. They found all exterior perimeter doors locked from the inside, all windows intact, and no evidence of human intruders anywhere on the campus grounds. The school's central computer, located in a locked basement server room, showed that the 3:15 p.m. PA broadcast had been initiated from a terminal that had been physically disconnected from the main power grid 6 months prior. Never respond to audio commands regardless of how authoritative or familiar the voice sounds without multi-factor physical or visual verification from known dispatch sources. Consider again the core statistic that defines these facility events, the 6%. In every single one of these documented accounts, official responder sweeps concluded with the exact same technical finding: no external forced entry, no broken perimeter seals, end quote, and no recognized human targets spotted on physical surveillance hardware. The automated safety systems performed exactly as they were engineered to do. They dropped the fire barriers. They locked the exterior access points. They sealed the occupants into neat, isolated, standardized spaces. The systems were perfect. Their only flaw was the design assumption built into their code, the assumption that whatever you are trying to lock out is on the outside of the building. The next time you find yourself sitting in a dark room during an unexpected facility lockout, don't just watch the door handle. Look up at the ceiling tiles. If you want to support deep dive forensic horror analysis like this, hit the subscribe button right now. Leave a comment below with your own facility safety experiences. Keep your doors secured and always verify who is really speaking through that intercom box.